All right, elsewhere, guys, we got some big news out of the Caribbean. Dwight Yorke has been appointed as the new manager for Trinidad and Tobago. Yorke, of course, captained the team to the 2006 World Cup in Germany. The Manchester United legend takes over as Trinidad and Tobago sit second in their World Cup qualifying group behind Costa Rica. The top two advance to the next round. Trinidad can clinch that spot by beating St. Kitts and Nevis when those two teams play June 6th of next year. So it'll be a minute till we see Dwight Yorke's Trinidad and Tobago in action. But Shaka Hislop, just how big a deal is this for football in Trinidad and Tobago?
I think it's needed. We've kind of stumbled from coach to coach over the last 4 or 5 years, probably dating back to Stephen Hart when he was in charge. But I think the TTFA got it right this time, and that's with the greatest of respect to our teammate Dennis Lawrence and Angus Eve, who'd both been in charge of the team, but results really didn't go their way. Dwight started with MacArthur in the A-League, as we know, started quite well, then had a parting of ways, let's just call it that, with the then owner. And he'd been looking for an opportunity. And I think this has come at exactly the right time for both Dwight and Trinidad and Tobago. Given the 2026 qualifying campaign, given all that's at stake, given the fact that US and Mexico and Canada are hosting, I think it's one that we really have to be dialed in qualifying for.
Herc, as Shaka mentioned, Dwight Yorke did manage in Australia with MacArthur FC, won a domestic trophy there, but it's a pretty thin managerial resume. The resume we're looking at here is the player resume, right? What a legend he was with Manchester United and with Trinidad and Tobago. What kind of impact do you feel like he can have on this national team?
I mean, listen, it's not thin. It's non-existent. It's 19 games in First Division, and Dwight is 53 years old. He started his coaching career 2 years ago at 51. So it's not really a coaching resume to speak of, but he's a natural, leader. He's an icon of the country. He's the biggest export they've had in football in their history. Certainly, it's got to be an injection of life. And listen, regardless of how very thin it is, he did win. He did win. With MacArthur, they won an Australian Cup. It was 19 games, and out of those 19, there was 10 wins. So he's got something there, something to work with, something to latch onto. And for a Trinidad and Tobago, for a program that's been non-existent since 2006, it's only been playing spoiler ever since, here and there. But the last time it was relevant at an international scale, the gentleman to my left here, my right on the screen, was playing for them, led them in a World Cup. Dwight Yorke was the captain. That's how far back we're going to talk about something positive or of relevancy for Trinidad and Tobago. So I don't mind it if it sparks a fire, if it gives the fans belief, the program something to build on. I'm for it. And as thin or non-existent as the coaching resume is, there's something there to latch on to. So the players, I think, will recognize the opportunity at hand. They've got a few, I think, special players on that island. Levi Garcia plays in AEK Athens with El Pelado, Matias Almeida down there in Greece, Orbelin Pineda's teammate. I think he's got a special player on his hands there. Certainly somebody like that learning from a Dwight Yorke. Regardless of how minimal, because it won't be a day-to-day contact, but in those camps will be a benefit. And listen, I mentioned they've only played spoiler. They've been very close a couple times to being there. They were a playoff game away from being at Copa America. They played the Canadian national team. So they have the ability to play spoiler. Now can they be somebody of relevance again in this confederation?
Shaka, what do the expectations be? I mean, when we think about 2026, USA, Mexico, Canada already qualified. There's some other good teams in CONCACAF, though. You got to think about Panama, Costa Rica, Jamaica, just to name a few. Are expectations back home that Dwight Yorke will be able to lead this team, if not into the World Cup, at least into contention for one of those 3 CONCACAF World Cup spots?
Listen, I think Trinidad and Tobago are expecting Dwight Yorke to lead this team to the World Cup. And listen, I understand everything Herc's saying, and he's absolutely right. I think the big challenge for Dwight coming in with this squad is it's not a a very talented squad, if I may say so, certainly on paper, and results would bear that out. Now, how he's able to find the right pieces for this puzzle is going to be Dwight's biggest test. You've got the one bright light, as Herc mentioned, in Levi Garcia, but in national teams gone by, I don't think we've been able to get the best out of Levi Garcia. We've not been able to play to his strengths. We've been far too pragmatic. That's not how we naturally play our football in Trinidad and Tobago. That's not what the fans want to see. The other challenge for Trinidad and Tobago, and it revolves around our locally based players, which is 99% of the squad. Trinidad and Tobago professional football has not resumed since the pandemic in 2020. So now you're trying to put together a national team, largely based of players based in Trinidad and Tobago, but there's no meaningful league in Trinidad and Tobago. The TTFA have plans to start one sooner rather than later. The sooner that starts, the better. But this is a challenge in a number of different levels for Dwight, but one that he was brought in to get right.
Biggest challenge might be the wait. June 6th of next year for that big game against St. Kitts and Nevis. Boy, at least he's got some time.
We've got some games during the international windows as well. We've got the November window, which will be Dwight's first time on the sidelines. So we have opportunity to see the squad, to make adjustments, to try to bring in players before things get very serious in terms of qualifiers.
Yep, got to win that game against St. Kitts and Nevis June 6th of next year. That'll clinch their spot in the next round of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying.